All right, welcome to Module 6, Lesson 4 Debrief. Earlier in the application problem, I said I'd be making this data and representing it with a bar graph. Now, first and foremost, I want to point out that you'll notice that there's a little bit of whiteout that's covering up part of the graph. That's because I made a mistake, but I did it on purpose to show you that it's okay to make mistakes and you can fix your mistakes very quickly. Totally wasn't an accident. I meant to do it. And you know I wouldn't lie to you. Meant to make the mistake. So, our debrief questions are this. How is a bar graph useful? And when might you use a bar graph? So, first question is, how is it useful? The greatest thing about a bar graph is I can take a lot of information and I can represent it visually. So with just a quick glimpse, I can see the difference of information. Whatever we're documenting here, this is happening the most, then this is just behind it, this is the third, and this is the last. This is the least amount of something. So just by looking at it, I know biggest, next, third, and last, or smallest, then here, then here, then here. Now, the longer I look at a bar graph, I get more information from it. I know that I'm looking at the wing vibrations of an insect because of the title. I know that this column over here is talking about the number of wing vibrations per second. So 100 vibrations per second, 200 vibrations per second, 300, and so on. I know down here that I'm looking at different insects. So this is the honeybee and how often they vibrate their wings per second, the beetle, the fly, and the mosquito. So how is it useful? It's useful to show information visually, and at a quick glance you can understand a lot of the information, and the longer you look at it, you can find out more and more information. So when might you choose to use a bar graph? Well, whenever you want to display data that you want people to be able to compare. So if I wanted to see how much more vibrations per second a honeybee has than a beetle, I can use this table to do it without having to try and memorize all those numbers. And something to point out is a graph isn't always going to land on the numbers you choose. I chose to count by hundreds because if I count by ones, I'd have to count all the way up to 700 for the mosquito. I don't want to write 700 numbers. So if I count by increments of 100, my bar graph is much smaller, but it's still representing a large number of vibrations. So the honeybee lands about halfway between 300 and 400 because it flaps 350 vibrations per second. Now our beetle is way down here at 200, and remember, this wasn't a mistake on accident, this was a mistake on purpose to teach you. If I look at the fly and I go over, same thing. It's not landing directly on one of the numbers where the beetle landed on 200, the fly lands between 500 and 600 because the fly is vibrating its wings 550 rotations or vibrations per second. So when might you choose to use the bar graph? Anytime you want to display data. Comparing information that you want somebody to be able to look at and get a quick glimpse of the information initially and to be able to compare the rest of the data the longer they look at it. You can use this for many different things. We did a bar graph in science, if you remember back. We were comparing different bits of information. So bar graphs can be very helpful when you're trying to show and represent data. I hope you enjoyed the first week of Module 6 e-learning. We'll begin with Module 6 Lesson 5 on Monday. Have a great weekend.